Chapter 5 of Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This recording is in the public domain. Verity Kendall. The Female Vagrant. By Derwent's side my father's cottage stood. The woman thus her artless story told. One field, a flock, and what the neighbouring flood supplied to him were more than mines of gold. Light was my sleep, my days in transport rolled. With thoughtless joy I stretched along the shore my father's nets, or watched, when from the fold, high o'er the cliffs I led my fleecy store, a dizzy depth below, his boat and twinkling oar. My father was a good pious man, an honest man by honest parents bred, and I believe that, soon as I began to lisp, he made me kneel beside my bed, and in his hearing there my prayers I said, and afterwards, by my good father taught, I read and loved the books in which I read, for books in every neighbouring house I sought, and nothing to my mind a sweeter pleasure brought. Can I forget what charms did once adorn my garden, stored with peas, and mint, and thyme, and rose and lily for the Sabbath morn? The Sabbath bells and their delightful charm, the gambols and wild freaks at shearing time, my hen's rich nest through long grass scarce espied, the cowslip gathering at May's dewy prime, the swans that, when I sought the water side, from far to meet me came, spreading their snowy pride. The staff I yet remember which upbore the bending body of my active sire, his seat beneath the honeyed sycamore, when the bees hummed and the chair by winter fire, when market morning came, the neat attire with which, through bent on haste, myself I decked, my watchful dog whose starts of furious ire, when stranger passed, so often I have checked, the red breast known for years, which at my casement pecked. The suns of 20 summers danced along, ah, little marked how fast they rolled away. Then rose a mansion proud our woods among, and cottage after cottage owned its sway. No joy to see a neighbouring house, or stray through pastures not his own, the master took. My father dared his greedy wish gainsay, he loved his old hereditary nook, and ill could I the thought of such sad parting brook. But when he had refused the pre-offered gold, to cruel injuries he became a prey, sore traversed in whate'er he bought and sold. His troubles grew upon him day by day, till all his substance fell into decay. His little range of water was denied. Footnote 2. Several of the lakes in the north of England are let out to different fishermen, in parcels marked out by imaginary lines drawn from rock to rock. End of footnote. All but the bed where his old body lay, all was seized, and weeping side by side, we sought a home where we uninjured might abide. Can I forget that miserable hour, when from the last hilltop my sire surveyed, peering above the trees, the steeple tower, that on his marriage day sweet music made? Till then he hoped his bones might there be laid, close by my mother in their native bowers. Bidding me trust in God, he stood and prayed. I could not pray. Through tears that fell in showers, glimmered our dear loved home, alas, no longer ours. There was a youth whom I had loved so long, that when I loved him not, I cannot say. Mid the green mountains many a song we two had sung, like little birds in May. When we began to tire of childish play, we seemed still more and more to prize each other. We talked of marriage and our wedding day, and I in truth did love him like a brother, but never could I hope to meet with such another. His father said that to a distant town he must repair, to ply the artist's trade. What tears of bitter grief till then unknown, what tender vows our last sad kiss delayed, to him we turned. We had no other aid, like one revived, upon his neck I wept, and her whom he had loved in joy, he said, he well could love in grief. His faith he kept, and in a quiet home once more my father slept. 4 years each day with daily bread was blessed, by constant toil and constant prayer supplied. 3 lovely infants lay upon my breast, and often, viewing their sweet smiles, I sighed, and knew not why. My happy father died, when such distress reduced the children's meal, thrice happy, that from him the grave did hide, the empty loom, cold hearth, and silent wheel, and tears that flowed for ills which patience could not heal. 'Twas a hard change, an evil time was come, and no relief could gain. But soon, with proud parade, the noisy drum beat round, to sweep the streets of want and pain. My husband's arms now only served to strain, me and his children hungered in his view. In such dismay my prayers and tears were vain, to those whose miserable men he flew. And now to the sea coast, with numbers more, we drew. There foul neglect for months and months we bore, Nor yet the crowded fleet its anchor stirred. Green fields before us and our native shore, By fever, from polluted air incurred, Ravage was made, for which no knell was heard. Fondly we wished, and wished away, nor knew, 'Mid that long sickness and those hopes deferred, That happier days we never more must view. The parting signals streamed, at last the land withdrew. But from delay the summer calms were past. On as we drove, the equinoctial deep Ran mountains, high before the howling blast. We gazed with terror on the gloomy sleep Of them that perished in the whirlwind's sweep, Untaught that soon such anguish must ensue, Our hopes such harvest of affliction reap, That we the mercy of the waves should rue. We reached the western world, a poor devoted crew. Oh, dreadful price of being so resigned! All that is dear in being! Better far in want's more lonely cave till death to pine, Unseen, unheard, unwatched by any star, Or in the streets and walks where proud men are. Better our dying bodies to obtrude, Than dog-like, wading at the heels of war, Protract a cursed existence, with the brood That lap, their very nourishment, their brother's blood. The pains and plagues that on our heads came down, Disease and famine, agony and fear, In wood or wilderness, in camp or town, It would thy brain unsettle even to hear, All perished, all in one remorseless year, Husband and children, one, by sword and ravenous plague, all perished. Every tear dried up, despairing, desolate, on board a British ship I waked, as from a trance restored. Peaceful at some immeasurable plain, by the first beams of dawning light impressed, In the calm sunshine slept the glittering main. The very ocean has its hour of rest, That comes not to the human mourner's breast. Remote from man and storms of mortal care, A heavenly silence did the waves invest. I looked and looked along the silent air, Until it seemed to bring a joy to my despair. Ah, how unlike those late terrific sleeps And groans that rage of racking famine spoke, Where looks inhumane dwelt on festering heaps, The breathing pestilence that rose like smoke, The shriek that from the distant battle broke, The mind's dire earthquake, and the pallid host Driven by the bomb's incessant thunderstroke To loathsome vaults, where heartsick anguish tossed, Hope died, and fear itself in agony was lost. Yet does the burst of woe congeal my frame, When the dark streets appear to heave and gape, While like a sea the storming army came, And fire from hell reared his gigantic shape, And murder, by the ghastly gleam, and rape Seized their joint prey, the mother and the child. But from these crazing thoughts my brain escape. For weeks the balmy air breathed soft and mild, And on the gliding vessel heaven and ocean smiled. Some mighty gulf of separation past, I seemed transported to another world. A thought resigned with pain, when from the mast The impatient mariner the sail unfurled, And whistling called the wind that hardly curled The silent sea. From sweet thoughts of home, And from all hope I was forever hurled. For me, farthest from the earthly port to roam Was best, could I but shun the spot where man might come. And oft robbed of my perfect mind, I thought, At last my feet a resting place had found. Here will I weep in peace, so fancy wrought, Roaming the illimitable waters round. Here watch of every human friend disowned. All day my ready tomb, the ocean flood, To break my dream the vessel reached its bound. And homeless near 1,000 homes I stood, And near 1,000 tables pined and wanted food. By grief enfeebled was I turned adrift, Helpless as sailor cast on desert rock, Nor morsel to my mouth that day did lift, Nor dared my hand at any door to knock. I lay where with his drowsy mates the cock From the cross timber of an outhouse rung. How dismal tolled, that night, the city clock! At morn my sick heart hunger scarcely stung, Nor to the beggar's language could I frame my tongue. So passed another day, and so the third. Then did I try in vain the crowd's resort To deep despair by frightful wishes stirred. Near the sea side I reached a ruinful fort. There, pains with nature could no more support, With blindness linked, did on my vitals fall. Dizzy my brain, with interruption short Of the hideous sense, I sunk, nor stepped crawl, And thence was borne away to the neighbouring hospital. Recovery came with food, but still my brain was weak, Nor of the past had memory. I heard my neighbours, in their beds, complain Of many things which never troubled me. Of feet still bustling round with busy glee, Of looks where common kindness had no part, Of service done with careless cruelty, Fretting the fever round the languid heart, And groans which, as they said, would make a dead man start. These things just served to stir the torpid sense, Nor pain nor pity in my bosom raised. Memory, though slow, returned with strength, And thence dismissed, again on open day I gazed at houses men and common light, amazed, the lanes I sought, and as the sun retired, came where beneath the trees a faggot blazed. The wild brood saw me weep, my fate inquired, and gave me food and rest more welcome, more desired. My heart is touched to think that men like these, the rude earth's tenants, were my first relief. How kindly did they paint their vagrant ease, and their long holiday that feared not grief, for all belonged to all, and each was chief. No plough their sinews strained, on grating road no wain they drove, and yet the yellow sheaf in every vale for their delight was stowed. For them in nature's meads the milky udder flowed. Semblance with straw and punnered ass they made of potters wandering on from door to door, but life of happier sort to me portrayed, and other joys my fancy to allure. The bagpipe dinning on the midnight moor, in barn uplighted, and companion's boon well met from far, with revelry secure. In the depth of the forest glade, when jocund June rolled fast along the sky his warm and genial moon. But ill it suited me, in journey dark o'er moor or mountain, midnight theft to hatch, to charm the surly house dog's faithful bark, or hang on tiptoe at the lifted latch. The gloomy lantern, and the dim lit match, the black disguise, the warning whistle shrill, and ear still busy on its nightly watch, were not for me, brought up in nothing ill. Besides, on grief so fresh my thoughts were brooding still. What could I do, unaided and unblest? Poor father, gone was every friend of thine, and kindred of dead husband are at best small help, and after marriage such as mine, with little kindness would to me incline. Ill was I then for toil or service fit, with tears whose course no effort could confine. By highway side forgetful would I sit whole hours, my idle arms in moping sorrow knit. I lived upon the mercy of the fields, and oft of cruelty the sky accused, on hazard, or what gentle bounty yields, now coldly given, now utterly refused. The fields I for my bed have often used, but what afflicts my peace with keenest ruth is, that I have my inner self abused. Forgone the home delights of constant truth, and clear and open soul, so prized in fearless youth. 3 years a wanderer, often have I viewed, in tears, the sun towards that country tend, where my poor heart lost all its fortitude. And now across this moor my steps I bend. Oh, tell me whither, for no earthly friend have I. She ceased, and weeping turned away, as if because her tale was at an end. She wept, because she had no more to say of that perpetual weight which on her spirit lay. End of The Female Vagrant. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 6 of Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Verity Kendall. Goody Blake and Harry Gill, a true story. Oh, what's the matter? What's the matter? What is't that ails young Harry Gill, that evermore his teeth they chatter? Chatter, chatter, chatter still. Of waistcoats Harry has no lack, good duffle grey and flannel fine. He has a blanket on his back, and coats enough to smother 9. In March, December, and in July, 'tis all the same with Harry Gill. The neighbours tell, and tell you truly, his teeth they chatter, chatter still. At night, at morning, and at noon, till all the same with Harry Gill. Beneath the sun, beneath the moon, his teeth they chatter, chatter still. Young Harry was a lusty drover, and who so stout of limb as he? His cheeks were red as ruddy clover, his voice was like the voice of 3. Old Goody Blake was old and poor, ill-fed she was, and thinly clad, and any man who passed her door might see how poor a hut she had. All day she spun in her poor dwelling, and then her 3 hours' work at night. Alas, 'twas hardly worth the telling, it would not pay for candle light. This woman dwelt in Dorsetshire, her hut was on a cold hillside, and in that country coals are dear, for they come far by wind and tide. By the same fire to boil their pottage, 2 poor old dames, as I have known, will often live in one small cottage, but she, poor woman, dwelt alone. 'Twas well enough when summer came, the long warm lightsome summer day, that at her door the canty dame would sit as any linnet gay. But when the ice our streams did fetter, oh, then how her old bones would shake! You would have said, if you had met her, 'twas a hard time for Goody Blake. Her evenings then were dull and dead, sad case it was, as you may think, for very cold to go to bed, and then for cold not sleep a wink. Oh, joy for her, when ere in winter the winds at night had made a rout, and scattered many a lusty splinter, and many a rotten bough about. Yet never had she, well or sick, as every man who knew her says, a pile beforehand, wood or stick, enough to warm her for 3 days. Now when the frost was past enduring, And made her old bones to ache, Could anything be more alluring Than an old hedge to Goody Blake? And now and then it must be said, When her old bones were cold and chill, She left her fire or left her bed, To seek the hedge of Harry Gill. Now Harry had long suspected this trespass of old Goody Blake, and vowed that she should be detected, and he on her would vengeance take, and oft from his warm fire he'd go, and to the fields his road would take, and there at night in frost and snow, he watched to seize old Goody Blake. And once behind a rick of barley, thus looking out did Harry stand, the moon was full and shining clearly, and crisped with frost the stubble land. He hears a noise, he's all awake, again, on tiptoe down the hill, he softly creeps, 'tis Goody Blake, she's at the hedge of Harry Gill. Right glad was he when he beheld her, stick after stick did Goody pull, he stood behind a bush of elder, till she had filled her apron full. When with her load she turned about, the by road back again to take, he started forward with a shout, and sprang upon poor Goody Blake. And fiercely by the arm he took her, and by the arm he held her fast, and fiercely by the arm he shook her, and cried, "I've caught you then at last!" Then Goody, who had nothing said, the bundle from her lap let fell, and kneeling on the sticks she prayed to God that is the judge of all. She prayed, her withered hand uprearing, while Harry held her by the arm. God, who art never out of hearing, oh may he never more be warm! The cold, cold moon above her head, thus on her knees did Goody pray. Young Harry Gill heard what she said, and icy cold he turned away. He went complaining all the morrow, that he was cold and very chill, his face was gloom, his heart was sorrow, alas that day for Harry Gill. That day he wore a riding coat, but not a whit the warmer he, another was on Thursday brought, and ere the Sabbath he had 3. 'Twas all in vain, a useless matter, and blankets were about him pinned, yet still his jaws and teeth they clatter, like a loose casement in the wind. And Harry's flesh it fell away, and all who see him say 'tis plain, that live as long as live he may, he never will be warm again. No word to any man he utters, a bed or up, to young or old, but ever to himself he mutters, poor Harry Gill is very cold. A bed or up, by night or day, his teeth they chatter, chatter still. Now think ye, farmers, all I pray, of Goody Blake and Harry Gill. End of Goody Blake and Harry Gill. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 7 of Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Verity Kendall. Lines written at a small distance from my house, and sent by my little boy to the person to whom they are addressed. It is the first mild day of March, each minute sweeter than before. The redbreast sings from the tall larch that stands beside our door. There is a blessing in the air, which seems a sense of joy to yield to the bare trees and the mountains bare, and grass in the green field. My sister, 'tis a wish of mine, now that our morning meal is done, make haste, your morning task resign, come forth and feel the sun. Edward will come with you, and pray, put on with speed your woodland dress, and bring no book, for this one day we give to idleness. No joyless forms shall regulate our living calendar. We from today, my friend, will date the opening of the year. Love, our now universal birth, from heart to heart is stealing, from earth to man, from man to earth, it is the hour of feeling. One moment now may give us more than 50 years of reason. Our minds shall drink at every pore the spirit of the season. Some silent laws our hearts may make, which they shall long obey. We for the year to come may take our temper from today, and from the blessed power that rolls about, below, above, will frame the measure of our souls, they shall be tuned to love. Then come, my sister, come, I pray, with speed put on your woodland dress, and bring no book, for this one day we'll give to idleness. End of Lines written at a small distance from my house, and sent by my little boy to the person to whom they are addressed. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 8 of Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Verity Kendall. Simon Lee, the old huntsman, with an incident in which he was concerned. In the sweet shire of Cardigan, not far from pleasant Ivor Hall, an old man dwells, a little man. I've heard he was once tall. Of years he has upon his back, no doubt, a burthen weighty. He says he is 70, but others say he's 80. A long blue livery coat has he, that's fair behind and fair before. Yet meet him where you will, you see At once that he is poor. Full 25 years he lived, a running huntsman merry, And though he has but one eye left, his cheek is like a cherry. No man like him the horn could sound, And no man was so full of glee. To say the least, 4 counties round Had heard of Simon Lee. His master's dead, and no one now Dwells in the hall of either. Men, dogs, and horses, all are dead, He is the sole survivor. His hunting feats have him bereft Of his right eye, as you may see. And then, what limbs those feats have left To poor old Simon Lee! He has no son, he has no child, His wife, an aged woman, Lives with him near the waterfall Upon the village common. And he is lean, and he is sick, His little body's half awry, His ankles they are swoln and thick, His legs are thin and dry. When he was young he little knew Of husbandry or tillage, And now he's forced to work, though weak, The weakest in the village. He all the country could outrun, Could leave both man and horse behind, And often ere the race was done He reeled and was stone blind. And still there's something in the world At which his heart rejoices, For when the chiming hounds are out He dearly loves their voices. Old Ruth works out of doors with him, And does what Simon cannot do, For she, not over stout of limb, Is stouter of the two. And though you with your utmost skill From labour could not wean them, Alas, 'tis very little all Which they can do between them. Between their moss-grown hut of clay, Not 20 paces from the door, A scrap of land they have, but they Are poorest of the poor. This scrap of land he from the heath Enclosed when he was stronger, But what avails the land to them Which they can till no longer? Few months of life he has in store, As he to you will tell, For still the more he works the more His poor old ankles swell. My gentle reader, I perceive How patiently you've waited, And I'm afraid that you expect Some tale will be related. O reader, had you in your mind Such stores as silent thought can bring, O gentle reader, you would find A tale in everything. What more I have to say is short, I hope you'll kindly take it. It is no tale, but should you think, Perhaps a tale you'll make it. One summer I chanced to see This old man doing all he could Around the root of an old tree, A stump of rotten wood. The mattock tottered in his hand, So vain was his endeavour, That at the root of the old tree He might have worked for ever. You're overtasked, good Simon Lee, Give me your tool, to him I said, And at the word right gladly he Received my proffered aid. I struck, and with a single blow The tangled root I severed, At which the poor old man so long And vainly had endeavoured. The tears into his eyes were brought, And thanks and praises seemed to run So fast out of his heart, I thought They never would have done. I've heard of hearts unkind, kind deeds With coldness still returning. Alas, the gratitude of men Has oftener left me mourning. End of Simon Lee, the Old Huntsman. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 9 of Lyrical Ballads 1798. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Verity Kendall. Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. Anecdote for fathers, showing how the art of lying may be taught. I have a boy of 5 years old, His face is fair and fresh to see, His limbs are cast in beauty's mould, And dearly he loves me. One morn we strolled on our dry walk, Our quiet house all full in view, And held such intermitted talk As we were wont to do. My thoughts on former pleasures ran, I thought of Kilve's delightful shore, My pleasant home when spring began, A long, long year before. A day it was when I could bear Think and think and think again, With so much happiness to spare I could not feel a pain. My boy was by my side so slim And graceful in his rustic dress, And oftentimes I talked to him In very idleness. The young lambs ran a pretty race, The morning sun shone bright and warm. Kilve, said I, was a pleasant place, And so is Liswyn farm. My little boy, which like you more? I said, and took him by the arm. Our home by Kilve's delightful shore, Or here at Liswyn farm? And tell me, had you rather be, I said, and held him by the arm, At Kilve's smooth shore by green sea, Or here at Liswyn farm? In careless mood he looked at me, While still I held him by the arm, And said, at Kilve I'd rather be Than here at Liswyn farm. Now, little Edward, say why so? My little Edward, tell me why? I cannot tell, I do not know Why this is strange, said I. For here are woods and green hills warm, There surely must some reason be Why you would change sweet Liswyn farm For killed by the green sea. At this my boy, so fair and slim, Hung down his head, nor made reply, And 5 times did I say to him, "Why, Edward, tell me why?" His head he raised, there was in sight, It caught his eye, he saw it plain, Upon the housetop glittering bright, A broad and gilded vane. Then did the boy his tongue unlock, And thus to me he made reply, At Kilve there was no weathercock, And that's the reason why. Oh dearest, dearest boy, my heart For better lore would seldom yearn, Could I but teach the 100th part Of what from thee I learn. End of Anecdote for Fathers. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 10 of Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Verity Kendall. We are 7. A simple child, dear brother Jim, That lightly draws its breath, And feels its life in every limb, What should it know of death? I met a little cottage girl, She was 8 years old, she said, Her hair was thick with many a curl That clustered round her head. She had a rustic woodland air, And she was wildly clad, Her eyes were fair and very fair, Her beauty made me glad. Sisters and brothers, little maid, How many may you be? How many? 7 in all, she said, And wondering looked at me. And where are they, I pray you tell? She answered, 7 are we, And 2 of us at Conway dwell, And 2 are gone to sea. 2 of us in the churchyard lie, My sister and my brother, And in the cottage yard I Dwell near them with my mother. You say that 2 at Conway dwell, And 2 are gone to sea, Yet you are 7, I pray you tell, Sweet maid, how this may be. Then did the little maid reply, 7 boys and girls are we, 2 of us in the churchyard lie, Beneath the churchyard tree. You run about, my little maid, Your limbs they are alive, If 2 are in the churchyard laid, Then ye are only 5. Their graves are green, they may be seen, The little maid replied, 12 steps or more from my mother's door, And they are side by side. My stockings there I often knit, My kerchief there I hem, And there upon the ground I sit and sing to them. And often after sunset, sir, When it is light and fairer, I take my little porringer, And eat my supper there. The first that died was little Jane, In bed she moaning lay, Till God released her of her pain, And then she went away. So in the churchyard she was laid, And all the summer dry, Together round her grave we played, My brother John and I. And when the ground was white with snow, And I could run and slide, My brother John was forced to go, And he lies by her side. How many are you then, said I, If 2 are in heaven? The little maid did reply, Oh master, we are 7. But they are dead, those 2 are dead, Their spirits are in heaven. 'Twas throwing words away, for still The little maid would have her will, And said, Nay, we are 7. End of We Are 7. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 11 of Lyrical Ballads 1798. This is a recording. All recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Verity Kendall. Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. Lines written in early spring. I heard 1,000 blended notes, While in a grove I sat reclined, In that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts Bring sad thoughts to the mind. To her fair works did nature link The human soul that through me ran, And much it grieved my heart to think What man has made of man. Through primrose tufts in that sweet bower The periwinkle trailed its wreaths, And 'tis my faith that every flower Enjoys the air it breathes. The birds around me hopped and played, Their thoughts I cannot measure, But the least motion which they made, It seemed a thrill of pleasure. The budding twigs spread out their fan To catch the breezy air, And I must think, do all I can, There was pleasure there. If I these thoughts may not prevent, If such be of my creed the plan, Have I not reason to lament What man has made of man? End of Lines written in early spring. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 12 of Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Verity Kendall. The Thorn. 1. There is a thorn, it looks so old. In truth you'd find it hard to say How it could ever have been young, it looks so old and grey. Not higher than a 2 years child, it stands erect, this aged thorn. No leaves it has, no thorny points, it is a mass of knotted joints, a wretched thing, forlorn. It stands erect, and like a stone, with lichens it is overgrown. 2. Like rock or stone it is o'ergrown with lichens to the very top, and hung with heavy tufts of moss, a melancholy crop. Up from the earth these mosses creep, and this poor thorn they clasp it round, so close, you'd say that they were bent, with plain and manifest intent to drag it to the ground, and all had joined in one endeavour to bury this poor thorn for ever. 3. High on a mountain's highest ridge, where oft the stormy winter gale Cuts like a scythe, while through the clouds it sweeps from vale to vale. Not 5 yards from this mountain pass, this thorn you on your left espy, and to the left 3 yards beyond, you see a little muddy pond, of water never dry. I've measured it from side to side, 'tis 3 feet long and 2 feet wide. 4. And close beside this aged thorn there is a fresh and lovely sight, a beauteous heap, a hill of moss, just half a foot in height. All lovely colours there you see, all colours that were ever seen, and mossy network too is there, as if by hand of lady fair the work had woven been, and cups the darlings of the eye, so deep is their vermilion dye. 5. Ah me, what lovely tints are there, of olive green and scarlet bright, in spikes, in branches, and in stars, green, red, and pearly white. This heap of earth o'ergrown with moss, which close beside the thorn you see, so fresh in all its beauteous dyes, is like an infant's grave in size, as like can be, but never, never anywhere an infant's grave was half so fair. 6. Now would you see this aged thorn, this pond and beauteous hill of moss, you must take care and choose your time, the mountain when to cross, for oft there sits between the heap, that's like an infant's grave in size, and that same pond of which I spoke, a woman in a scarlet cloak, and to herself she cries, oh misery, oh woe is me, oh misery. 7. At all times of the day and night this wretched woman thither goes, and she is known to every star and every wind that blows. And there beside the thorn she sits, when the blue daylight's in the skies, and when the whirlwind's on the hill, or frosty air is keen and still, and to herself she cries, oh misery, oh woe is me, oh misery. 8. Now wherefore thus by day or night, in rain, in tempest, and in snow, thus to the dreary mountain top does this poor woman go? And why sits she beside the thorn, when the blue daylight's in the sky, or when the whirlwind's on the hill, or the frosty air is keen and still? And wherefore does she cry? Oh wherefore, tell me why, does she repeat that doleful cry? 9. I cannot tell, I wish I could, for the true reason no one knows, but if you'd gladly follow the spot to which she goes, the heap that's like an infant's grave, the pond and thorn so old and grey, pass by her door, 'tis seldom shut, and if you see her in her hut, then to the spot away. I never heard of such a dare approach the spot when she is there. 10. But wherefore to the mountain top can this unhappy woman go? Whatever star is in the skies, whatever wind may blow? Nay, rack your brain, 'tis all in vain, I'll tell you everything I know, but to the thorn and to the pond, which is a little step beyond, I wish that you would go, perhaps when you are at the place, you something of her tale may trace. 11. I'll give you the best help I can, before you up the mountain go, up to the dreary mountain top, I'll tell you all I know. 'Tis now some 22 years, since she, her name is Martha Ray, gave with a maiden's true good will, her company to Stephen Hill, and she was blithe and gay, and she was happy, happy still, whene'er she thought of Stephen Hill. 12. And they had fixed the wedding day, the morning that must wed them both, but Stephen to another maid had sworn another oath, and with this other maiden to church, unthinking Stephen went. Poor Martha on that woeful day, a cruel, cruel fire, they say, into her bones was sent. It dried her body like a cinder, and almost turned her brain to tinder. 13. They say, full 6 months after this, while yet the summer leaves were green, she to the mountain top would go, and there was often seen, 'tis said, a child was in her womb, as now to any eye was plain. She was with child, and she was mad, yet often she was sober sad, from her exceeding pain. Oh me, 10,000 times I'd rather that he had died, that cruel father. 16. Sad case for such a brain to hold communion with a stirring child. Sad case, as you may think, for one who had a brain so wild. Last Christmas when we talked of this, old Father Simpson did maintain that in her womb the infant wrought about its mother's heart and brought her senses back again. And when at last her time drew near, her looks were calm, her senses clear. 15. No more I know, I wish I did, and I would tell it all to you. For what became of this poor child, there's none that ever knew. And if a child was born or no, there's no one that could ever tell. And if 'twas born alive or dead, there's no one knows, as I have said. But some remember well, that Martha Ray about this time would up the mountain often climb. 16. And all that winter, when at night the wind blew from the mountain peak, 'twas worth your while, though in the dark, the churchyard path to seek. For many a time and oft were heard cries coming from the mountain head. Some plainly living voices were, and others, I've heard many swear, were voices of the dead. I cannot think whate'er they say, they had to do with Martha Ray. 17. But that she goes to this old thorn, the thorn which I have described to you, and there sits in the scarlet cloak, I will be sworn is true. For one day with my telescope, to view the ocean wide and bright, when to this country first I came, ere I had heard of Martha's name, I climbed the mountain's height, a storm came on, and I could see no object higher than my knee. 18. 'Twas mist and rain and storm and rain, no screen, no fence could I discover, and then the wind, in faith it was a wind full 10 times over. I looked around, I thought I saw a jutting crag, and oft I ran, head foremost through the driving rain, the shelter of the crag to gain. And, as I am a man, instead of a jutting crag I found a woman seated on the ground. 19. I did not speak, I saw her face, it was enough for me. I turned about and heard her cry, "Oh misery, oh misery!" And there she sits until the moon through half the clear blue sky will go, and when the little breezes make the waters of the pond to shake, as all the country know, she shudders, and you hear her cry, "Oh misery, oh misery!" 20. But what's the thorn, and what's the pond, and what's the hill of moss to her, and what's the creeping breeze that comes this little pond to stir? I cannot tell, but some will say she hanged her baby on the tree, some say she drowned it in the pond, which is a little step beyond, but all and each agree the little babe was buried there beneath the hill of moss so fair. 21. I've heard the scarlet moss is red with drops of that poor infant's blood, but kill a new-born infant thus? I do not think she could. Some say if to the pond you go, and fix on it a steady view, the shadow of a baby trace, a baby in a baby's face, and that it looks at you, whene'er you look at it, 'tis plain, the baby looks at you again. 22. And some had sworn an oath that she should be to public justice brought, and for the little infant's bones with spades they would have sought. But then the beauteous hill of moss before their eyes began to stir, and for 50 yards around the grass it shook upon the ground. But all do still aver the little babe is buried there beneath the hill of moss so fair. 23. I cannot tell how this may be, but plain it is the thorn is bound with heavy tufts of moss that strive to drag it to the ground. And this I know full many a time, when she was on the mountain high, by day and in the silent night, when all the stars shone clear and bright, that I have heard her cry, "Oh misery, oh misery, oh woe is me, oh misery!" End of The Thorn. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 13 of Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Verity Kendall. The Last of the Flock. In distant countries I have been, and yet I have not often seen a healthy man, a man full grown, weep in the public roads alone. But such a one on English ground, and in the broad highway I met. Along the broad highway he came, his cheeks with tears were wet. Sturdy he seemed, though he was sad, and in his arms a lamb he had. He saw me and turned aside, as if he wished himself to hide. Then with his coat he made essay to wipe those briny tears away. I followed him and said, "My friend, what ails you? Wherefore weep ye so?" "Shame on me, sir, this lusty lamb, he makes my tears to flow. To day I fetched him from the rock, he is the last of all my flock." When I was young, a single man, And after youthful follies ran, Though little given to care and thought, Yet so it was, a ewe I bought, And other sheep from her I raised, As healthy sheep as you might see, And then I married, and was rich, As I could wish to be. Of sheep I numbered a full score, And every year increased my store. Year after year my stock it grew, And from this one, this single ewe, Full 50 comely sheep I raised, As sweet a flock as ever grazed. Upon the mountain did they feed, They throve, and we at home did thrive. This lusty lamb of all my store Is all that is alive. And now I care not if we die, And perish all of poverty. 10 children, sir, had I to feed, Hard labour in a time of need. My pride was tamed, and in our grief I of the parish asked relief. They said I was a wealthy man, My sheep upon the mountain fed, And it was fit that thence I took Whereof to buy us bread. Do this, how can we give to you, They cried, what to the poor is due? I sold a sheep as they had said, And bought my little children bread, And they were healthy with their food. For me it never did me good. A woeful time it was for me To see the end of all my gains, The pretty flock which I had reared With all my care and pains, To see it melt like snow away. For me it was a woeful day. Another still, and still another, A little lamb, and then its mother. It was a vein that never stopped, Like blood drops from my heart they dropped, Till 30 were not left alive. They dwindled, dwindled one by one, And I may say that many a time I wished they all were gone. They dwindled one by one away, And for me it was a woeful day. To wicked deeds I was inclined, And wicked fancies crossed my mind, And every man I chanced to see, I thought he knew some ill of me. No peace, no comfort could I find, No ease within doors or without, And crazily and wearily I went my work about. Oft times I thought to run away, For me it was a woeful day. Sir, 'twas a precious flock to me, As dear as my own children be. For daily with my growing store I loved my children more and more. Alas, it was an evil time, God cursed me in my sore distress. I prayed, yet every day I thought I loved my children less, And every week and every day My flock it seemed to melt away. They dwindled, sir, sad sight to see, From 10 to 5, from 5 to 3, A lamb, a wether, and a ewe, And then at last from 3 to 2. And of my 50 yesterday I had but only one, And here it lies upon my arm, Alas, and I have none. Today I fetched it from the rock, It is the last of all my flock. End of The Last of the Flock. Recording by Verity Kendall. Chapter 14 of Lyrical Ballads 1798 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Verity Kendall. The Dungeon. And this place our forefathers made for man. This is the process of our love and wisdom to each poor brother who offends against us, most innocent perhaps, but what if guilty? Is this the only cure? Merciful God! Each poor and natural outlet shriveled up by ignorance and parching poverty, his energies roll back upon his heart, and stagnate and corrupt, till changed to poison, they break out on him like a loathsome plague spot. Then we call in our pampered mountebanks, and this is their best cure. Uncomforted and friendless solitude, groaning and tears, and savage faces at the clanking hour, seen through the streams and vapour of his dungeon, by the lamp's dismal twilight. So he lies circled with evil, till his very soul unmoulds its essence, hopelessly deformed by the sights of evermore deformity. With other ministrations thou, O Nature, healst thy wandering and distempered child. Thou pour'st on him thy soft influences, thy sunny hues, fair forms, and breathing sweets, thy melodies of woods and winds and waters, till he relent and can no more endure to be a jarring and dissonant thing amid this general dance and minstrelsy, but, bursting into tears, wins back his way, his angry spirit healed and harmonized by the benign touch of love and beauty. End of The Dungeon. Recording by Verity Kendall.